Welcome back, everybody. This is Mark Hateman, president of Kieri Solutions. I've got our founder, Amira Armond, here with me. Today, we're going to give you some tips on what kind of security protection asset evidence an assessor is going to want to see. Amira?
Yay. All right. Okay, so let me share my screen. And we're going to be looking at official sources here from the DoD. First off, I've got the DoD website up here, and we're talking about level 2, CMMC level 2, because security protection assets don't exist at level 1. And not a whole lot of people need to know about level 3. Okay, right. Let's focus in on level 2. So if we first, let's go look at our assessment guide at level 2, which gives us some requirements that might be performed by a security protection asset. Okay, so here's a nice big requirement in the systems and communication protection family, which says to monitor, control, and protect communications at the external boundaries and key internal boundaries of organizational systems. Okay, so the quick thing about this requirement is it's basically saying have a firewall. This is actually this is originally a level 1 control that's also in level 2. So it's really meant to be pretty simple, right? Have a firewall, guys. Turn on the firewall, right? Now, when it comes to security protection assets, which, by the way, if you haven't watched our series on CMMC scoping since the final rule, you should, because we actually talk about this topic too in that one.
In much more depth as well.
Yeah. So the concept of a security protection asset, so I just switched over to the CMMC scoping guide for level 2. Here's the definition. Security protection assets provide security functions or capabilities within the organization seeking assessments, CMMC assessment scope. Okay. What is a security function or capability? Well, they provide a service to you. They provide a protection to you. They do something to help you be more secure. And that's about as vague as we're going to be, right? Because you could have a person be a security protection asset, and that person, maybe all they do is they think about how to be more secure in the architectural design of your network. Well, that makes them a security protection asset because that's one of the requirements. A firewall is a great example of a security protection asset. And there's lots of other stuff that can be, right? An antivirus server, a vulnerability scanner, whoever does your directory, right? All that. Okay. So for me, right, the easy way to figure out what is a security protection asset is we go look at the system security plan of the client that we're assessing, and we see whether the client talks about how they do a requirement using an asset. Okay, and let me actually pull up a system security plan real fast. It's going to take me a second to find one. So this system security plan is a system security plan template that we sell at Kieri. Okay, so it's not any company's proprietary information. And it's basically for a reference architecture, a network that has been proven to be able to pass CMMC level 2. Okay, so I'm scooting down to the same requirement that we're just looking at in the assessment guide. But now I'm going to read what the answers are in here. Okay, and I'm going to be looking at named items here. Communications are controlled using firewall rules. In this reference architecture, each Windows computer is considered its own external boundary, right? And then we're also going to talk about Microsoft 365 Defender for Endpoint for logging. So that's the monitoring key. We talk about Defender doing the firewall functionality for Windows. So now we've got two security protection assets potentially. We have Windows laptops and we have Microsoft Defender, which is an antivirus vulnerability scanner capability. And what else? We also talk about Microsoft 365, which has its own external boundary, right? So now we've got three different security protection assets just listed in this SSP. And as an assessor, I'm taking a note of that. Okay, so I'm going to follow what it says here to understand the security capability or functionality provided. So if this SSP says Microsoft 365 does this, right, that does that requirement, then as an assessor, I need to see evidence showing that it does that requirement or that assessment objective within the requirement. Now, for a cloud, it's kind of hard to go visit the cloud service provider, go into the data center, show me your firewall, right? They're going to be like, get out of here. You're not even allowed in the front door. But the way they handle this is the cloud service provider, if they're a good one, will allow a dedicated team of assessors to do it once, right? They'll get assessed once, and that's generally using the FedRAMP program. And then that assessment team writes a very detailed report about what they found. Hey, we saw the cloud doing all the stuff. And then the cloud will make that report available to each of their clients so that the cloud doesn't need to be assessed each time by the clients. They just give the report. The clients look at it and they go, okay, I think you're good, right? And they trust that assessment team from FedRAMP. So in this case, the evidence that we want to see for the cloud is their FedRAMP package, specifically this cross-reference control, which is roughly equivalent to this requirement that we're looking at here in CMMC. So that's the first thing. Okay, that's a major piece of evidence that you should expect to provide for any of your clouds, especially the ones that handle CUI for you.
And I'll point out here, we are finding as OSCs are gathering information for their assessment that there is a very much a variable timeline as far as how quickly you can get the information you need from a cloud provider. An example would be someone that has been waiting for over a month. So keep that in mind as you're preparing yourself for an assessment, that you're going to need this information, and it may not be readily available without a little bit of work on your part.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Some clouds won't even give you their audit package.
Yep.
Right. So Microsoft 365 and I think AWS are they both have a good process to provide the audit package. But there's other clouds that are just like, nah. Right? Just refer to the fact that we're FedRAMP. We're not going to tell you anything else. And that could be a major problem. Now, because the CMMC final rule literally says that for FedRAMP Cloud, you need to get the customer responsibility matrix from them. So it doesn't say you have to get the FedRAMP package. If they're FedRAMP authorized, we can say, yeah, we're going to trust that they're doing all the FedRAMP requirements. But we do need a customer responsibility matrix from them, and that's normally part of the FedRAMP package. Okay, could be a different document, but we really, really, really need to see that as assessors. Okay, so that's another piece of evidence for a security protection asset cloud or a cloud that handles CY for you. Talk to your lead assessor to see whether they need to see the FedRAMP package stuff for your specific clouds, or work with a consultant about that, because technically you're supposed to be doing self-assessments once a year, and you should have done a self-assessment before you go to your real CMMC assessment, and you should have required the same evidence that we require, right? So you should have been like, oh, I need to see this, and gotten it. That's the most correct answer. So hopefully you discovered this on your own by using a qualified person to help you with your self-assessment. All right, so anyways, we're going to check to see if this does the control, right? The requirement that we're calling them out for. And then we're going to come up to the next thing, the Defender firewall, which is on Windows devices. So we're going to say, hey, do you have proof that it monitors communication traffic? Do you have proof that it automatically blocks access to malicious sites? Do you have proof that provides protection against network threats? And that could be, in this case, a set of firewall rules, right, which the SSP kindly mentions for us and points us in the right direction. Or it could just be, hey, show me live that the firewall's turned on, right? Which is kind of what we're looking for this one, that the firewall's turned on and incoming ports are blocked by default, because this is just a very, very simple requirement. It's one that's at level 1 as well. And then, we're going to follow the thread on Windows devices, right? Do we need to inspect anything specific on Windows devices, or is it really just Defender? In this case, the only thing that Windows really does separate from the Defender capability is network logs are captured and sent to, this is a cloud service, right? So it's separate from the local Defender software. Microsoft named everything Defender, makes it real confusing, sorry. Right, but in this case, as an assessor, I would go, okay, this is something I need to assess and make sure that what it says is being done. Network logs are captured and sent. Okay, so show me those logs. So hopefully you're getting the idea. What is considered an SPA is going to be entirely company, the client, the organization seeking assessment. It's going to be up to them, and it's going to be based on how they do each of these assessment objectives, how they do each of their requirements, and what they write in their SSP. If they say the way I do this requirement is with this thing, that makes it an SPA, a security protection asset, that we're going to confirm that it's actually doing that functionality, that capability. Okay. What we're not going to do is go check other stuff arbitrarily. Okay. And this last part is debated among assessors. So some lead assessors are planning on adding stuff that they think is important to that security protection asset, which can cause issues because you didn't know that it was going to be assessed, right? And And I personally think that that's past our mandate. So the scoping guide does not say to assess against anything other than the security requirements that are relevant to the capabilities provided. Okay. But, you know, make sure you talk to your lead assessor and confirm that they're not planning on arbitrarily saying, well, I think your firewall also needs to be patched, right? Of course it needs to be patched, but it's not our mandate to assess that. That's
Right.
your mandate to do it, self-assess it, right? But not the C3PAO. So, you know, or I think your firewall needs to have secure configurations applied, right? Where that's not our mandate to assess. It should. It's a requirement, but we don't check it. Okay. So, you know, arbitrarily lumping in stuff that is not how you do a requirement should be discouraged because it's not the mandate.
And that is how we will approach an assessment as Kieri. Any one of our assessors will approach it that way.
Yeah. So if you talk about how you do something and you say, I do it with this, doing it this way, we're going to ask for evidence, get prepared. But for security protection assets, we don't go through the entire list. We will do that entire list for the CUI assets. And if you have an asset that fits both the definition of a CUI asset and a security protection asset, we're going to want to see everything, right? We're going to go to the highest level of review. But just be prepared. So hopefully that helps. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Amira. Remember down below, like, subscribe. Your likes help other folks have the algorithms pick this up. So it's an opportunity to share across the ecosystem and help other DIB contractors learn what they need to know to pass their assessment. So thank you.